If you suddenly awoke in a subarctic winter, snow biting at your feet, wind carving the air to 40 degrees Fahrenheit, would you know how to stay alive for even a single night? No shelter. No tools. Only an ancient landscape where warmth is earned, not given. Most people wouldn't last an hour. But for the peoples who once lived here, survival wasn't luck. It was knowledge, discipline, and a mastery of the cold itself. Winter in the Subarctic is not a season. It is a force. It arrives without mercy, settles without hurry, and reshapes the land into a place where even the simplest rules of survival begin to warp under its crushing weight. Snow rises in heavy drifts across the taiga, burying sound, slowing breath, turning every step into a negotiation with cold and gravity. Winds cut between the trees like invisible blades, shredding warmth, stripping away any illusion of safety. Daylight fades to a thin, reluctant ribbon, a brief glow suspended between long corridors of twilight. Yet for thousands of years, this was home. Cree, Dene, Athabascan, Innu, peoples who learned to read the Subarctic. With the precision of scholars and the instincts of hunters, their survival depended not on fortune, but on a finely tuned relationship with fur, hide, bone, sinew, and the strange physics of snow itself. Inside their winter clothing lived technologies so advanced, so refined through generations of trial, error, and memory, that even modern scientists still examine them in disbelief. In this world, every decision mattered. What to wear, how to walk, when to move, and when stillness meant safety. Because here, a single mistake didn't just cost comfort. It froze swiftly into tragedy. But the true genius of Subarctic life was never a single tool or garment. It was a complete system, layered, intelligent, and engineered for a land that rarely, if ever, offered a second chance. Caribou were more than food. They were architecture, insulation, movement. Entire worlds of warmth stitched together with sinew and memory. Each hair on a caribou hide is hollow, a tiny chamber of trapped air, forming one of nature's most astonishing thermal barriers. Subarctic peoples transformed this miracle into a two-layer parka system, capable of holding heat like a living furnace, even in the wide, wind-scraped snowfields of midwinter. The first layer, fur turned inward, captured warmth at the skin. The second, fur turned outward, deflected wind, scattered snow, and shed ice before it could steal heat. Together, these layers formed a microclimate, a pocket of life wrapped in hide, where breath could warm the body and the body could resist the dark. This design wasn't luck. It was engineering handed down through generations, who measured success in degrees of warmth and minutes of survival. Hunters crossed frozen lakes without losing heat, moved silently through hoarfrost-glazed forests, or waited motionless beside a snare line, as the world around them tried to drain their strength. In this world, warmth was not comfort. Warmth was time, and time was survival. Yet even the caribou's gift had limits, and as the seasons shifted and the landscape changed its mood, the people turned to another animal, one whose hide could endure the forest's teeth, and complete the system that kept them alive. If caribou was insulation, moose was armor. Moose hide is dense, so dense that once scraped, smoked, and softened, it becomes a natural shield against wind, abrasion, and the constant clawing of branches in the deep subarctic forest. Caribou parkas ruled the open snowfields of deep winter, but moose hide coats dominated the shoulder seasons, those unpredictable months when the land shifted moods, and survival demanded flexibility. These coats were built not just for warmth, but for the grind of real labor. Hauling canoe frames across riverbanks, carrying freshly cut poles on bare shoulders, pushing through spruce corridors heavy with snow that brushed and scraped with every passing step. Adorned with beads or lined with thin fringes, they held meaning as well as purpose. Fringe flicked away summer insects with each movement, and beadwork told quieter stories of family, identity, artistry, and memory. In early winter and the first fragile days of spring thaw, when ice grew unreliable underfoot, and storms changed direction without warning, moose hide offered the resilience needed to navigate a forest that was always shifting, always alive. But no one traveled the Subarctic on foot alone. To cross its deep, powdery snow that could swallow a person to the waist, required a technology so elegant, so deceptively simple, that it transformed winter itself, and expanded the very footprint of human possibility. Walking on Subarctic snow without snowshoes is like trying to run through wet cement, each step sinking, dragging you downward, turning effort into exhaustion faster than the cold can bite. Snowshoes solve this with one elegant principle: spread the body's weight across a wider surface. A simple idea, yet it redefined what winter travel could be. Built from steam-bent birch frames, and the tight, rhythmic lacing of rawhide or caribou sinew, snowshoes functioned like wings pressed gently against the snow, lifting travelers just enough to keep them afloat, even on powder that rose to the waist. 3 major designs emerged, each tailored to a different world. The broad bear paw, perfect for weaving through dense trees. The long, narrow Huron, made for distance and steady rhythm. And the graceful Ojibwa, a sleek extension of the human stride, built for speed across open, frozen plains. These were not crude implements. They were precision tools, tuned across generations, shaped to match the exact character of regional snow. Light, dry powder, heavy spring crust, deep midwinter silence. With snowshoes, hunters could follow caribou trails for miles, check trap lines scattered across vast forests, or reach frozen river mouths, where fish lay still beneath sheets of blue ice. Mobility meant everything: food, furs, safety, and the ability to return home before darkness fell. But even the most perfectly crafted snowshoe was only as effective as the body protected within it. Without the right layers: warmth against wind, defense against moisture, the cold would reclaim its advantage, one breath at a time. Beneath the heavy layers of hide and fur, many Subarctic families wore something unexpected: garments crafted from feathers. Goose down, duck plumage, soft ptarmigan fluff. These feathers were stitched into quilt-like layers, each fold trapping pockets of warm air, with a precision that modern engineers still marvel at. Feathers offered a kind of thermal agility no other natural material could match. Warm when perfectly dry, still reliable when touched by moisture, and astonishingly light compared to caribou or moose hide. For children whose smaller bodies lost heat quickly, these feather garments were priceless. They moved freely, played, traveled, learned, all while wrapped in a breathable layer that adapted to shifting temperatures. As families journeyed between hunting grounds, fishing sites, and winter camps buried in white silence. Today's high-end outdoor gear mimics the same principle. Thousands of tiny air pockets suspended within delicate clusters of down. But indigenous peoples mastered this science long before. Insulated jackets filled store shelves. Their clothing balanced heat, weight, and moisture in a way that worked with the human body, never against it. Every stitch, every feather placement, reflected centuries of experimentation and a deep understanding of thermal behavior in extreme climates. Yet, in a land shaped by frozen rivers and sudden thaws, moisture was a constant threat, a silent enemy that could turn warmth into danger. And only one material remained capable of shielding the body from the cold bite of wet clothing. Beaver-fur is the Subarctic's original waterproof membrane, a natural shield built from dense underfur and oily guard hairs that repel moisture with almost unbelievable efficiency. It acted as a living barrier between the wearer and the shifting moods of winter, the slush of early thaw, the heavy, wet snow of late-season storms, the icy spray rising from fishing holes carved into frozen rivers. Layered over a caribou parka, beaver-fur transformed ordinary garments into weatherproof shells long before synthetic fabrics existed. It turned clothing into armor against moisture, the great thief of body heat. Mittens, hoods, collars, the places most vulnerable to freezing, all relied on beaver fur to stay dry. because in a landscape ruled by ice, but laced with endless streams, lakes, and meltwater, staying dry was not a luxury. It was the foundation of survival itself. Subarctic peoples mastered a strategic system: caribou for heat, beaver for weather, moose for strength and abrasion. Each material played its role in a perfectly layered harmony. But clothing alone did not define their success. The deeper story lived in how people used these layers. How they moved through the forest, paced their work, rested at the right moments, and remained alert to subtle changes in wind and snow. Day after day, they wove these rhythms into their lives, until the harsh landscape softened just enough to become a home, not gentle, not forgiving, but navigable through knowledge, discipline, and respect for every fiber they wore. Daily life in the Subarctic was a choreography of constant adaptation. Every dawn began not with comfort, but with maintenance. Scraping frost from hide garments, checking sinew threads for tiny cracks, brushing snowshoe lacing to keep ice from hardening into stone. Families rose before the light fully arrived, listening to the subtle language of the land. Trees creaking under cold strain, winds shifting direction with a warning edge, the distant thump of caribou hooves echoing across frozen ground. Hunters slipped through spruce stands in near silence, guided by delicate tracks written in fresh snow. Signatures of wolves, hares, moose, each print a clue, each trail a possibility. Women fed the fire with careful hands, softening hides, shaping new lacing cords, or stitching feather garments for children, whose small bodies demanded reliable insulation. Children learned by watching, absorbing, repeating. They learned to read the sky before a storm, to choose the right snowshoe for shifting snow conditions, to layer fur so that sweat never froze into dangerous crystals. Knowledge wasn't taught, it was lived. Evenings brought their own ritual. Drying mittens above slow-burning coals, mending worn seams, sharpening tools, preparing quietly for the next day's demands. Every motion had intent. Every task fed into a system designed for efficiency and endurance. And perhaps the most remarkable truth of this world was not the cold or the danger, but how people transformed that danger into routine, weaving survival into the rhythm of ordinary life, until even the harshest moments felt like part of a practice dance. The technologies of the Subarctic: caribou double-layer parkas, moose hide armor, feather garments, beaver-fur weather shells, and the elegant engineering of snowshoes, were never isolated inventions. They formed a single, interdependent system, as intricate and intentional as any machine crafted today. This system did more than shield the human body from cold. It created harmony with a landscape capable of freezing rivers solid, silencing forests beneath heavy drifts, and reshaping the world into a vast white architecture of survival. Even now, traces of this ancient mastery remain. They live in modern winter gear, in the science of thermal layering, in the habits and knowledge passed down by descendants who still travel the frozen north, with respect for every step, every breath, every decision. And as we peer into this world from afar, a question lingers, quiet, unsettling, and unavoidable. What would happen to us, a society cushioned by central heating, synthetic fabrics, and the comfort of weather forecasts on glowing screens, if we were suddenly placed in the Subarctic night, with nothing but the knowledge these peoples once carried? In their hands, in their muscle memory, in their unbroken traditions? That question loops back to our beginning, reminding us that true survival has never relied on technology alone. It has always depended on the wisdom to use it well, the discipline to understand nature rather than resist it, and the humility to learn from those who shaped a life inside the cold and called it home. If this journey into Subarctic ingenuity stirred something in you, consider joining us at Native Legends Uncovered. Here, we uncover the technologies, traditions, and quiet brilliance that shaped human endurance, long before modern tools ever existed. Subscribe, stay curious, and share this story with someone who believes survival is only about strength. Because in places like the Subarctic, it was knowledge, patience, and attention to the smallest details that kept people alive. And as you return to the warmth of your own world, pause for a moment and ask yourself, what ancient skill would you trust when the cold finally closes in?